Homophobes are sinful and deceitful. Homophobes like to cite from the Old Testament, but the Old Testament was for the Jews only in the early part of their history. The Old Testament is not for other nations and other races. As homophobes like using the Old Testament and the Bible against others, we will examine their dishonest attitude, their deceitful and treacherous mode of operation. Homophobes select only certain passages written by persons who were bad or not model of goodness that suit their purposes. The passages that are detrimental or demanding to them are ignored by them. Some of these passages are: 1. If you want to go to heaven, Jesus says, you should leave your family, everything and follow me. That is, Jesus. Christian homophobes should abandon their families and their comfortable lives. 2. It is more difficult for rich people to enter heaven than for a camel to pass through the hole of a needle. All homophobes should not search comfort, riches and prosperity. They should give their possessions to others. 3. In the Bible, it is also said that people should give 1/10 of their salaries to charities. All those heterosexuals who follow the Bible strictly should give 1/10 of their salaries. 4. The Bible also permits and accepts slavery. Then those homophobes should accept to become slaves if they are enslaved. 5. The Bible teaches that women should be obedient and submissive to men. Then Christian women should accept being dominated by men. 6. In Leviticus, it is said that after emission by men and discharge by women, they become soiled and they should not, for many weeks, touch certain objects and do certain things. If they touch them, these objects should be destroyed. Heterosexuals who follow the Bible literally should destroy the objects they touch during that period, after emission or discharge. In reality, they don't follow this command. 7. The Bible also says that all males should be circumcised. Those who are not should be put to death. Today most Christians are not circumcised. They should be put to death. 8. The Old Testament told Jews to rest on the Sabbath. Anyone caught doing work or an unusual activity is punished by death according to the Old Testament. Nowadays there are so many people, including Christian fundamentalists, working on the Sabbath. Those homophobes sticking to Old Testament should not work on this day. They should accept the death sentence if they work on this day. 9. In the Old Testament, the Israelites were commanded not to wear clothes made of 2 or more materials. Nowadays most clothes are made by mixing different materials. For example, you rarely find clothes made of 100% cotton. Other materials are often added to it. According to the Old Testament, mankind is committing sin by wearing those clothes made from a mixture of materials. Those homophobes sticking to the Old Testament should not wear those clothes. But in reality they do wear them, and very often too. They are contradictory, sinful and dishonest. 10. In the Bible, gluttony is considered a serious sin. Since a long time, heterosexuals, their families and children commit the sin of gluttony. They spoiled a lot of things too. Many Christians also are very gluttonous. 11. In the 10 Commandments, God condemns adultery, and during the times of the Old Testament adultery was condemned by death. Then those who follow the Old Testament should demand the criminalization of adultery and the death sentence for this offense. Nowadays adultery and fornication are very common among heterosexuals, even among heterosexual priests. It is surprising that all those homophobes do not ask for the criminalization of adultery. On the contrary, they tolerate it, when adultery is one of the sins condemned in the 10 Commandments. They disregard most of the sins committed by heterosexuals and focus their attention only on some anti-gay passages of the Old Testament, which are controversial and obsolete. Those anti-homosexual passages written in the Bible were written by fanatical heterosexual men, hungry of women. They were not models of goodness and righteousness. In fact, many were brutal, violent, tyrannical, repressive, and living under women's control was their desire, even if they desire this only in their imagination. St. John considers heterosexuality dirty. In the Bible, heterosexuality is not considered a good thing. It is considered a necessary evil. God considers virginity as the virtue, as the ideal. Mary did not have sexual relations. St. John in Revelation 14 says the 144,000 people stood before the throne. They were singing a new song, which only they could learn. They are the only ones who have been redeemed. They are the men who have kept themselves pure by not having sexual relations with women. St. John reveals God's thought on heterosexuality. He considers heterosexuality dirty and sinful. God does not like heterosexuals. Floods, earthquakes and cancer are God's methods to punish heterosexuals. During the last century, all earthquakes and floods occurred in countries and regions where heterosexuality was predominant. God tells heterosexuals to leave material success, their families and heterosexuality if they want to enter heaven. If God tells heterosexuals these things, it is because He knows that heterosexuals can resist their heterosexuality and can relinquish their condition. They can cure themselves of their desire for heterosexuality. Heterosexuals cite only passages that suit their purposes but ignore others that are against their interests. If they are sincere, they should also follow the other instructions in the Bible. Their attitude and behavior show that they are deceitful, sinful, contradictory and dishonest.